So welcome friends to the last video in the series on teaching approaches for educating children with intellectual disability. This video focuses upon cognitive approach, and in cognitive approach we are going to discuss focusing upon the metacognitive training and the cognitive behavior management. Let's understand what is metacognition. So the meta means above and cognition refers to thinking or perceiving things. So here metacognition means aware of one's thought or thinking about one's thinking. So having awareness about one's own thought, like what am I thinking, like what is going to happen next, like that, having control over the thinking of a particular person's thinking is called as metacognition. Metacognition is defined in the words of J.H. Flavel, who first used the word metacognition, as goes. Metacognition refers to one's knowledge concerning one's own cognitive processes or anything related to them. Example, learning relevant properties of information or data. So, what he means is, see how our thought process will happen. Having control over that is called as metacognition. So, for example, if a person is engaged in metacognition, if he notices that he has a problem like in learning, then then that should not be believed in as such. It should be double checked with C before accepting it as a fact. This is what is said by J.H. Flavel. So, let's suppose there are A, B and C, and if A is engaged with metacognition, then he has to understand how learning happens with B, and that has to be double checked with the C before accepting it as a fact. Simply by looking at one single person, he should not come to a generalization. So he has to be very clear that his thought process is regulated, in the sense it's traveling or processing in a right way. The components of metacognition are metacognitive knowledge, metacognitive regulation, and metacognitive experiences. Here, metacognitive knowledge, also called as metacognitive awareness, is what an individual know about themselves and others as cognitive processes. So, what do you think and what others will think on the same aspect. Then comes metacognitive regulation. It is the regulation of cognition and learning experience through set of activities which help people control their learning. So, regulation of cognition, regulation of the thought process happens here in metacognitive regulation based on the set of activities which helps them to control over their learning. Then comes metacognitive experiences, which an individual experience with current ongoing cognitive endeavor. Then comes metacognitive strategies. Metacognitive process or universal when it comes to the discussion of self-regulated learning. See, being engaged in metacognition is very helpful for the self-regulated learners. So here, groups reinforcing collective discussion of metacognition is a salient feature for self-critical and self-regulating social groups. See, here in metacognition, one important thing which we have to understand is nobody else will control us. We have to control and regulate ourselves based on the thought process which happens by looking at or exposing too many experiences and listening to people based on the fact we have to regulate ourselves and our thought process is being regulated. That is what is metacognition. Nobody else will come and correct that. See, here you have gone wrong, you have to correct yourself, like that. It is not like that. Metacognitive strategy focuses upon self-regulation, which is very, very important. So here, metacognition attempts to plan, check, monitor, select, revise, and evaluate the metacognitive activities or the strategies. So here, metacognition helps people to perform many cognitive tasks more effectively. So here we will discuss about few strategies that will promote the metacognition. The first one is self-questioning. What do I really know about this topic which I am going to learn? How have I solved the problems like this before? So this self-questioning, like what do I already know? Whether I have a problem earlier, how am I going to solve this? So self-questioning ourselves, that is the first thing. Then us thinking aloud while performing the task. So here we have self-questioned and there will be some answer for that. Then while performing the task, you have to make a loud thinking, so that as we discussed in our multisensory thing, speaking while doing will help to regulate our thoughts. Then making graphic representation, that is concept map, flow chart, semantic webs of one thought and knowledge. See here, we will be we would have done this mind mapping, concept mapping, etc. for learning the concepts. Is it not? Like in our process of learning. Same way, making graphic representation of our thought, like how it will go about. So pre-planning and like this will happen after this, like that. If you have a concept map or a flow chart or a semantic web, that will regulate the thought of an individual, which will travel in the right path without any obstacle. So metacognitive strategy helps for a self-regulated thought process, which will help that particular individual to move in the right way. And all these metacognitive strategies will help him to move by removing all the obstacles which come in his path. So the metacognitive training program is developed from cognitive neuropsychiatry research findings on schizophrenia and psychosis. So actually they have trained these individuals experiencing psychosis to aware of their own thinking pattern which are involved with their illness, and this has helped them to overcome their wrong thinking pattern or delucinations, and helped them to overcome the delusions and all, and to have proper active normal thinking. So metacognitive training finally focuses upon self-regulated learning or self-regulation in the thought process of an individual. How does MCT work? MCT is metacognitive training. So here MCT tries to understand the common thinking patterns which they might be prone to, and to overcome the potentially problematic thought patterns. So erroneous or distorted thinking patterns may happen, but the distorted thinking style has to be overcome through the metacognitive training. And the common thinking disruptions may include making strong judgments based on the little evidence. So we are not as we have discussed in the definition itself, looking at B, simply arriving into conclusion, even before looking into what is happening with the C. And then blaming other people rather than the circumstance. It has happened because of you. Simply telling like that instead of looking or having a broad view of the environment which would have stimulated that to happen. Then being unable to fully consider and accept information provided by the other people. That is what we have discussed here also. Then being unable to get low of strongly held positions. So we will hold on certain things and we will never allow that to go away, even if we find that it is wrong. Then being overconfident that inaccurate memories are the in fact accurate. So we believe in certain things, and even after finding that it is false or it is inaccurate, we don't have confidence to leave that. Okay, so these are some common thinking distortions. This MCT program tries the client to become aware of these distortions and prompt them to overcome that by critical reflection. So it addresses participants to overcome the specific delusions or the wrong thinking pattern. And here this wrong thinking pattern can be regulated through one-to-one training in the initial stages, and later on can be extended to the group therapies. So how this metacognitive training will be applicable for persons with intellectual disability? See here, the goal of improving metacognitive skills, we all know, is it not? So the goal for this MCT upon people with ID is very less as far as their academic achievements are concerned, but rather it helps them to gain higher self-awareness, and thereby it will help them to increase their quality of life in the society. So here, through metacognitive training, even though it mainly focuses upon the self-regulated academic learning and all for other type of disabilities, for persons with intellectual disability, it helps a lot to have a higher self-awareness of those individuals with intellectual disability among, upon themselves, and to increase their quality of life by self-regulating their behavioral pattern. Then here, instructions also have to be adapted for persons with intellectual disability, which requires for more social acceptance of those persons. And here skills has to be acquired step by step before applying it and generalizing them to a complex situation. So here metacognitive training on self-regulated thinking and to develop self-awareness should happen in one-to-one mode or in a structured environment, and later on slowly it has to be adapted and transferred to the real environment. And then comes a cognitive behavior therapy. So as like metacognitive training, here cognitive behavior training is also used to treat people with a wide range of mental health problems. So here CBT is cognitive behavior therapy, which is used to be aware of the cognition, like what we think, how we feel, that is the emotions associated with the cognition, and how we act, that is the behavior which is observed by everybody else in the society. So like CBT is an idea to integrate cognition, emotion and behavior. So specifically, naturally, our thoughts determine our feelings and our behavior. Here the CBT transfers the unrealistic or the negative thoughts to be overcome by realistic thinking pattern of an individual. So this thinking pattern will naturally influence upon the emotion and the behavior of a person with intellectual disability. So here CBT is an umbrella term for many different therapies that share same common elements. The two earliest form of cognitive behavior therapy, which is practiced even nowadays, or rational emotive behavior therapy, which is shortly called as REBT, developed by Albert Ellis in the year 1950, and cognitive therapy developed by Aaron T. Beck in 1960s. So what is cognitive behavioral therapy? So it is a psychosocial intervention which focuses on changing unhelpful thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. So here, by changing the irrational thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors, emotions are regulated in a positive way and improved, which helps an individual to solve the problematic issues. So, cognitive behavioral therapy is a psychosocial intervention which focuses on changing unhelpful thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors, which improve emotional regulation of a person and create a suite of coping strategies to solve the problematic issues. See, thought is influenced by emotion, which is influenced by the which influences the occurrence of the behavior. So here, like, we are attending to the thought processing itself, so which regulates the emotion, which regulates the behavior. So here have a look at this picture. That is thought. What we think affects how we feel and act. Is it not? So feeling is emotion. What we feel affects how we think and act. And behavior is influenced by what we do affects how we think and feel. See, all these thought, behavior, emotion interconnected. So thought is the main core of this tripolar process. So if we replace the irrational thoughts, naturally the emotion and the behavior will become regulated. So cognitive behavior therapy aims to change our thought pattern, our conscious and unconscious belief, our attitude, and ultimately our behavior, in order to help an individual to face difficulties and achieve the goals. So here the simple idea is that each person has a unique pattern of thinking, feeling, and behavior based on his or her own experience. It may be either good or bad. So since these patterns will have significant impact on the experiences, so altering that experiences can change the behavior and the emotion. So this is what is told by Martin in the year 2016. So here cognitive behavior therapy aims to replace the irrational thoughts which will be reflected in the emotion and the behavior of an individual. So here, how this is going to help a person with intellectual disability is, see here also both the cognitive, in our cognitive therapy we have discussed about metacognitive strategies and the metacognitive training and the cognitive behavior therapy. See, both the things, how it will be beneficial for a person with intellectual disability is for their self-regulated learning. See, we cannot make a person with intellectual disability to have control over his thought. It's very much difficult. You all know, because of their intellectual functioning limitation, it is difficult for them to do that like any other person. But here we can help a person with intellectual disability to self-regulate himself, to self-aware of himself, so that he can be presentable among the other people in the society. So Once he becomes self-aware of his behavior and his emotion, naturally he will be accepted by the society as any other person, and all his social skills will be regulated in acceptable manner which is demanded by the society. See here we talk about the inclusive society. So in inclusive society, once the person with intellectual disability learn all the self-awareness skill and self-regulation strategy to be uh, 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 proficient or eminent with his social skills, naturally he will become part of this inclusive society and can be educated, can be provided with all other enjoy the rights which are meant for him, and will be acceptable in job, employment, and can have an independent and empowered life. So the main thing required here is to become self-aware. So this cognitive behavior therapy, focusing upon metacognitive training and cognitive behavior therapy, trains an individual with person with intellectual disability to self-aware of himself, to learn the social skills, to learn the adaptive skills, and present in such a way that he is accepted by the society.